Hello. How you doing,
Good
Meredith?
morning. Good, good. How are you, Taylor?
I'm good. We're coming off of freshly off of a workshop that we had on Wednesday and Thursday. And so to be honest, Meredith and I have been on camera a lot this week.
Yeah.
um, and the weeks leading up because we pre-record some of our sessions too. So this is going to be, I think, just kind of an informal chat reflection about this, how the workshop went, and things that we're looking forward to, stuff that even things that we saw that were maybe I have some things from the Discord chat that got brought up that I thought were really kind of cool, and yeah, we're just gonna be a little bit informal and reflection. Before we even dig into that, if folks didn't know, we are the workshop we just came up off of is this one on our event calendar. So it was Wednesday and Thursday. It was a combined domain of one's own WordPress multi-site 2-day workshop. So day one was focused on domain of one's own, day two on WordPress multi-site. We've never done that before in that format. And in fact, it occurred to me that we only recently started doing WordPress multi-site workshops at all. We did them
Yeah,
in
I feel like
partnership.
this was number two.
I
Number,
think it
yeah.
was technically three, but it was the second
Oh.
101. So
Mhm.
we did two with Tom Woodward involved, a 101 and a 201. And this is the first time we've done one just the core reclaim team, basically. So
Yeah.
and so that was kind of big for us because um, you know we do workshops basically at the minimum once a year. Sometimes we do them twice a year if there's demand and time and interest and things. Um, and we redo the sessions every time. We re-examine the topics every time. There's always slightly different sessions, and also, of course, the actual our best practices and advice changes every time, of course, too.
Mhm.
At least slightly. But I think as a company, domain of one's own workshops have been a thing for at least. I went to one as a customer in like 2018. I'm sure that wasn't the first one. So,
Yeah, that was the first one. That was actually the first one we ran in
oh,
Fredericksburg. We
okay,
started with two in town, 2018 and 2019, and then of course 2020 didn't never happened. But the last couple of
sure.
years we've been doing remote workshops, and I think we've got the like routine down for it
Yeah,
of like preparing and getting all the sessions set up and everything.
we're really falling into a rhythm with them in a way that makes them, I'll just say, significantly less stressful for us as a team, which is great because it means we can be more present on the day of the workshop in the Discord answering people's questions, which
Yeah.
I think is huge. We've had, I guess I haven't had the question recently, but I've had the question before of like, hey, like, why do you guys pre-record any of these? If we're all watching them together on YouTube and stuff like that. And the answer is we pre-record some of them because I mean it would be a heck of a day, to be honest with you, and it means it kind of feels like a ghost town in terms of discussion. I mean, of course, the the participants discuss, and that's awesome in Discord. But um, if we're all tied up with producing live video the entire day, then when questions come up that we may be able to answer, we're not in there prepared to
Hmm.
answer, basically. And it doesn't really, I don't think it works very well. And I think this format that, sort of got pioneered in OER by Domains 21, this
Hmm.
is sort of like the earliest version of the format that we're using. And we'll talk about the format a little bit more, but um, is works so well for, hey, this is a remote workshop that people can attend live and discuss, and it feels lively and not just like I'm watching a video today. But also it's really accessible and people don't need to be there during if they
Yeah.
can't. We have plenty of people who say, oh, I could make it for 2 sessions, but the rest of the day I can't, sorry. And we go, well, if you want, they're all available as recordings as soon as they're done. It's not you have to wait a week for us to upload them. It's as soon as it's over, you could watch it again if you wanted to, each individual session. And I really think that works well for people. And I think it's a realistic compromise between an event and it feels exciting and meeting people where they are, which is that not everyone has 2 days to effectively not do any of their normal work duties, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that brings up the question, how do we actually put on the workshop and how are
Yes.
we able to make it accessible almost immediately after the session finishes?
Yeah, so we'll go through some tools that we use here. Some of this is stuff we've of course talked before, but I think it's good. I always think of these Friday streams as our off the cuff, informal. We'll call it vlogging, I guess, right? Like it's a video version of this for us as a team, in some ways, to kind of just track the time and say like, this is what we're doing this week, this is what we're doing this month, or whatever, so we can look back on these. So as of February of 2024, this is how we do a paid workshop like this. So we now have this wonderful event calendar website, and I say wonderful because it saves us a lot of time and headache and setup. But basically, we have this event calendar website. We use it for all kinds of things. So we of course post an event to the workshop, about the workshop, to the calendar. And then obviously tickets aren't for sale anymore because it's past. But when they are for sale, they're down here. People can buy them. I'll just say we're using the event calendar plugin and a Stripe integration to collect payment. And I heard from nobody about having trouble buying tickets, which is awesome. And honestly, not a given with like institutional credit cards and stuff. Sometimes that stuff can be kind of weird. So that was great. I highly recommend. And that was awesome because then what results in that is we get this handy list. Of course, it's based on WordPress. We get this handy list of here's all your attendees, and I've blurred the names out. Just we don't need other people's names on stream, but we did have a few. It looks like have folks that put like the wrong payment information in, so some folks are listed twice. But it's basically 32 people minus 1, 2, 3 missed payments. So we had 29 attendees across both days. And this is great because not only can we get information, their name and email from here, the event calendar also lets us ask questions about them. So we can say like, what institution are you from? And what's your Discord username? Because we use Discord for discussion. So this is just great. We had some folks didn't know their username at sign up, maybe because they hadn't used Discord before. It wasn't a required field. So, but for the most folks, we had this ahead of time and it made things really easy to set up. We also are able to use this tool to email attendees and let them know about what's going on. So this is just, honestly, it was a big time saver for us this time around. But then we use this watch site. So this watch site is a couple different things. It's again sprung out of OER by Domains 21, and there's some things that we're doing differently here from that time. But basically we have a different WordPress site that we host that has all of the session information that we enter, and that's using a plugin called Advanced Custom Fields and some work that Tom Woodward set up for us. So we basically have a special post type that all the sessions are. And then these sites, we basically, I made them so that we can basically give them a few pieces of information as like PHP variables. So basically we just type into a text file the category of what posts and what Discord channel it should pull in is pretty much what we do. So these sites are really easy for us to maintain and keep organized. So all of the sessions go into here, and each session links to a YouTube video, which will load here. And it keeps track of the time. So when the session is actually live, oh my God, my cat decided to jump on my lap. Just went to the vet this morning, so she is like very spooked.
Oh no.
But anyway, so the sessions are live on YouTube. So basically we pre-record some of them and we use YouTube's Premiere feature so that they can air at a certain time and everyone can watch together. But then as soon as they're done, they're available as a recording at the same link. And
Mhm.
all of those features are really handy, right? The fact that we can all watch together live is great. Instead of like releasing the video and people can be at different points, that's not very good for discussion. You want when it's the session time, when it's live, you want to know that everyone's watching at the same place in the video, or at least can be watching at the same place. So that way when people are typing in Discord, you all know what we're talking about, basically.
Mhm.
So that's huge. And honestly, something that I haven't, there's not a lot of other ways to do that kind of thing. You know, um, we've been using YouTube Premieres for a long time now on this stuff, and they're just great and rock solid. I can't say we've ever had an issue with the YouTube Premiere. Um, and and then again, the fact that they're available at the same link immediately after is key for folks to be able to watch on their own time. Um, Live streams are similar, right? So, you know, for our live sessions, they go in as this was a live session. And now that they're recorded after the fact, you really can't tell the difference, honestly. But these sessions also are available immediately after for folks to watch too. So it's super nice. And we can, you know, put basic descriptions in this site, title, things like that. Finally, the last component of this website is this Discord embed. And we do this so that folks can have like a one-page experience of the workshop. So we can just say, go to this URL and there's your workshop, basically. And that's super handy. I will say we use something called WidgetBot, which is like it's a bot and an integration with Discord. And it works really well, except when they have outages. And I will say this morning, they're having an outage, it seems. I can tell because we also use this on Reclaim TV if folks are watching live, and it's also not working over there for me right now. Maybe it's my browser too, it's possible. But I'm getting this error on our watch site too, and they have outages once in a while. It's a free service, and I think one thing I'd like to look in the future is like if they offer paid support of any kind, because we use it enough now that I think it's kind of a key part of our infrastructure.
Mhm.
And as far as these workshops go, obviously infrastructure is a little bit of a loaded term at a hosting company.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't use that word. It's an important tool that we use for our workshops.
Yes.
And it's one of the only ones that we don't have the ability to like replace with a self-hosted version. Most of the stuff we're using is self-hosted, except for of course YouTube.
Mhm.
But we have an alternative to that. We have PeerTube, and we could use it. It would just be way less convenient because of the premieres is not a feature that PeerTube has. So that's one other thing. But it's really nice when it's working because folks can just, you know, message right inside of here, and they don't even have to have the Discord app open or even installed, which is, I think, really key because, you know, we like Discord here a lot for this the community building we can build inside of it, but it's a compromise in the sense that, you know, it is a walled garden, right? It's you have to get a Discord account. They're free, but you have to have one, and that gets really complicated for a paid workshop, right? Because we have folks that say like, well, I don't want to install Discord. And we go like, look, A, you don't have to if you don't want to, but B, you can participate without installing anything. You can just make an account and log in right here, and you'll be good to go. And I think that makes a big difference for us.
Absolutely.
And obviously, we could use some other live chat thing, but Discord has so many benefits because we can keep the conversation going after the workshop. And I think one thing that we're starting to see, you know, a couple years on, this is, you know, our second year of having a EdTech Discord, and we're starting to see more organic conversations and questions and answers happening
Mhm.
in there, and it's becoming, I think, a really valuable space. So we can use that for the workshop too, and that all synergizes, you know.
So, do you want to talk a little bit about how we approach having the separate channel for the paid workshop for both WordPress multi-site and domains? Because I think we like
Yeah.
within the Discord setup we have WordPress multi-site and domain of one's own separate channels, and we wanted like I think it's kind of interesting to talk through like how we wanted to make sure that the workshop attendees had their own channel to talk in outside of the full community while the sessions were running.
That's kind of another thing that Discord makes very simple for us, and not something we could do if we were using just like YouTube's chat or whatever.
Mhm.
So, or not easily. So, well, no, not really at all. So, yeah. So we make private channels for each paid workshop. Now we do free events too, for like our Flex courses are all free, but and those also get a channel. But for paid events, we simply switch the channel over to private in Discord, which is pretty easy to do actually. Like it's literally just a toggle in, if you run a Discord server, you can go to the permissions on a channel and switch it to private. And then from there you can either add roles, because Discord has a whole role system, or you can just add individual people to the channel and say these people get access. In the past, when we had a subscription for a whole year of events, we did use the roles to manage that and make that easy to do. But honestly, now with these one-off events and single attendees, it's really easy to just add individual people, and we just kind of do it on the fly. So basically, 2 days before the workshop, I went through our event list of the folks that had given us Discord usernames and added them, which took me like 5 minutes. And then, but we of course had a lot of people who joined the day of, or even in the middle of the day. But that was pretty simple. We just told them in the email, like, look, if you join, you don't see this channel, reply to this email, or just say something in the Discord. Just speak up and say, hey, can I get added to the channel? And we had, I think like 4 or 5 people that did that, and that covered everybody basically. So, we, these are paid workshops, and what we're asking for payment is for our time in preparing the workshop, right?
Mhm.
We don't want to make the experience of attending the workshop worse because it's paid and therefore not something everyone can attend. And we've talked a lot about that. I think we all have a lot of feelings at the company. Like, I don't know, Meredith, you've had this experience, but I've definitely had the experience with like other online workshops from other places where it's like, all right, I've paid a lot of money for this, and like the thing we're using to watch it or participate sucks, like barely works, or is hard to use. Like I had to use like Adobe Connect once, and that is a godforsaken off. Did you know Adobe had a video conferencing solution? I
No,
didn't
I did
until
not.
that day. I don't even know if it exists anymore, to be honest with you. But it's not good. So but so that very much influences this, and that's why we want to use things like YouTube and Discord, because they're they work, they do what we need to do, but B, we think they're going to be good experiences. Like it'll be a good chat experience that has things like threads and replies and emoji reactions, which, in like a professional context sounds silly, but like I think are really important communication tools, especially like emoji reactions. You might be like, who cares about that? Honestly, that's how people communicate. It's how I communicate, at least, in some small way. And it contributes hugely to make this feel like something that can be fun, I think.
Absolutely.
And then on the YouTube side, right, like it's just the world's biggest video platform. So we're really big into self-hostable stuff, and we use those things too, right? Like right now we're broadcasting to both YouTube and our own cast server on Reclaim TV, and then the video will be archived at PeerTube. That is all great. I love that stuff. There are probably few companies in the world that appreciate the value of that more than we do, obviously. But on the other hand, Google knows how to serve a video globally. And I think that's really important when we're talking about paid stuff. It needs to work. And also we want to make sure it's accessible in ways that we may not think of too. Like, YouTube has automatic, pretty good live captioning, right? So that's awesome. And could be important for some of our attendees. It's also really easy to watch a YouTube video on like a TV. right? Because pretty much everything that supports internet video will have a YouTube app. So and our videos are apply there too, right? So you can literally like click on one of our videos and it'll break out to the YouTube website, and you could use like Chromecast or AirPlay or something to put it on your TV. So all of that I think is really important because we want it to be a good experience, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we did a really good job making it seem like a asynchronous event as well. Like you were saying, like people didn't, or some people couldn't attend the full time, so having that option to watch separately, I think, is really helpful in that capacity. From there, so
Yeah. So I'm really happy with that foundation. I think there are things that we want to improve on, of course. Like um, there are changes I want to make to the watch site. Like I've seen um, more recent OER iterations where they have the ability to view the watch the playlist of videos, the schedule in a vertical format with like a button that would show you the whole schedule at once.
mm.
I think that would be great. Like scrolling horizontally makes a lot of sense in terms of making sure there's enough space for the videos and stuff. But I think if you want to jump around and see the whole day at once, that could be something that maybe we could borrow from Michael Branson Smith's work on that version of this player. Um, I think it would be good to have a ability to hide the Discord chat actually, because while it's great, if you are using the Discord app, it's just a duplicate, right? So
Hmm.
I want to make a toggle for that, and I've done that on Reclaim TV. I shouldn't say I've done that. Sort of the way I hacked Discord into Reclaim TV, Owncast has that built in basically.
Oh, gotcha.
Um, so I want to do something similar, and personally, I've been kind of over the last year starting to get a little bit more familiar with like real basic terrible JavaScript stuff. Like I'm bad. I'm very bad at this, but having a basic understanding of how this stuff works, and then spending some time with it and using things like ChatGPT to fix my code up, um, actually I can get pretty far with bad skills. So
Mm,
so
I
I
gotcha.
think there are some things that would be nice to have, that we could work on over the summer for a potential fall workshop. But honestly, all those things are, I think, relatively minor. Um, and I'm really happy with this format, and I'm interested in seeing how we can expand it out too. Like maybe in the future we can have other types of interaction. So more than just Discord. Like what if we had like use something like a collaborative whiteboard tool and asked participants to add to the whiteboard. I don't, this is a little bit like methodology in search of a problem, but I do think it would be fun to have more interaction methods throughout the day. So
Yeah.
that's something we can always consider. Of course, for us from a planning perspective, we also are never sure how many people are going to be able to attend. So it's a balance of like, well, if we make a session depend on questions and only 5 people are able to watch live, that's not great.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
normally, I would say, looking at the numbers yesterday, we had usually between 15 and 20 people watching live. So
Mm,
that was great. But everyone interacts with this stuff differently. So we didn't hear from every single one of those people in Discord. We heard from most of them, but not every single one, right?
yeah.
So um, people attend these things differently, and again, I think that's a great side effect. It would be way more tiring and grueling if we asked folks to be in a 5-hour Zoom call with their cameras on or something.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this, I'm still really happy with this format, and I don't see us deviating from it anytime soon. But maybe we can, keep building on it. So
Hmm. Absolutely.
the last thing that we use in terms of making all this stuff happen is we heavily use StreamYard, which we're using right now to produce this video. And I am trying to think. It would be unwise for me to try to show you what StreamYard looks like while we're in it. But you know what? we're gonna find out. I'm gonna open it in a different browser. We're gonna
I was gonna say I can take a screenshot of us and we can
I'm,
share
I'm
that too.
I'm gonna open it in a different browser here, and I won't actually my like camera or microphone or anything to that one, and that may work. So um, let me see here. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Of course that was gonna happen. Um, maybe I can turn that off. Well, nope. We're just going to be brief with it. But basically, the StreamYard here is our live production tool. It's a paid tool. Honest, I don't know. I think it's between like 20 and $30 a month that we're paying for it, which is honestly for the value we get out of it. It's great. Like that is so worth it. But basically, it means that Meredith and I can join into a live session here and just kind of we can make sessions ahead of time, and they are kind of like a cloud hosted version of OBS, which we've talked a lot about OBS, and I love it. And it can do a lot more things than StreamYard can do, and in many cases at higher quality. But StreamYard makes this stuff simple to set up and use, and that is key when we're talking about a whole team trying to do this thing. Um, but basically, StreamYard lets us pick different layouts here, and I'll switch layouts around and do all kinds of things with it. But and that's about all I'm gonna do with showing StreamYard, because it gets pretty dizzying to look at the infinite hall of mirrors thing. But it's a live production tool. We can make all of our sessions that are live in there, and it's super nice because it'll actually go and make the live stream on YouTube for us, which is really cool. And then we also use it for our pre-recorded sessions too. We just go in there, we record. StreamYard keeps a copy of the recording, so when we're ready to upload it to YouTube and air it as a premiere, we just download it, trim it if it needs to be trimmed. Usually not, though. We're getting pretty good. I had to edit like a few seconds out of one of ours because I accidentally closed the StreamYard window while Pilot and I were recording.
Oh no.
but other than that, I think we're getting pretty good at this in terms of being efficient with it. But yeah, StreamYard is a key tool to make this. I mean, can you imagine if we were doing these and we had like on Wednesday we had 3 live sessions, and if we had to rely on someone's home internet connection and OBS setup, one person, right? Like let's say it's me. I hope my internet connection is good all day. It usually is.
Yeah.
But it's a paid event. You really don't want to mess it up, right?
Yeah, you don't want to have that point of failure. And like even with yesterday, like not that AT&T has like home network, but like when that whole situation was going on, like if we were relying on someone who was using cellular data and was on AT&T, like clearly couldn't. Or you were even saying you were having weirdness with
I was
like
having
Slack.
weirdness with Slack for a little bit, which it's probably completely unrelated to the AT&T thing, but what I was saying, I was speculating with Jim. I was like, maybe like AWS is having some kind of outage, because you see that a lot when a big cloud provider has like one region of their data centers out. You'll see like weird patchworks of websites not working. I don't think that's what that was in this case. We would have heard news about you kind of hear about every large AWS outage, but I don't know what it was. I'm guessing someone at my local ISP, which the ISP, I live in a very small town, and the ISP is like headquartered like 15 minutes away from where I live. So it's I like when I call I love them, because when I've had to call them for support once, and I was like, yeah, I'm having this issue, and they're like, when can we come out? And I was like, when are your techs available? And they're like, I don't know, like right now. And
that's amazing.
Like, you guys are the best. So anyway, side tangent, but yeah, obviously it was Slack, but it could have been my whole internet connection, right? Like who knows?
Yeah.
So, and it's really great to know that we don't have a single point of failure in this stuff, and we're still gonna, I still like to use OBS for certain things, and I kind of want to bring it back in the rotation for some of these Friday streams that are, low risk. Because I think it would be kind of cool to do some things we can't do in StreamYard, like virtual green screen stuff and things like that. I can actually run on my Windows desktop because I have a NVIDIA card. It does like really good virtual green screen stuff. And I was like, that'd be kind of cool to have the team and not be in boxes for once, you know. Is that
Yeah, that would be
essential?
comfy.
No,
No.
but it's fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's nice because we share a login through our password manager anywhere. I think you don't really even need like separate username and passwords. So like if it's a reclaim based stream and like the live stream, like I was with Pilot yesterday while she's talking to Laura at University of New England. Um, the I was in the background managing the like producing the live stream while Pilot was able to speak with Laura, but we both were signed in, so we had like the privileges to like make changes if needed or anything like that. So super fun.
Yeah, it's so nice for us to have a concept of like a host and a producer,
Mm-hmm.
and be able to even on the fly, like if for some reason you weren't feeling good, it's like, all right, I'll just jump in and do it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
any of us can. Yeah, honestly, um, I was aware of StreamYard before I worked at Reclaim, but I'd never really used it. And I think it's a no-brainer if you're working on a team that does anything with video.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Totally.
I would be, yeah, we occasionally did stuff with video at my last job, and usually that was sort of just like my thing anyway, so it kind of made sense that it was OBS. But um, the usability of StreamYard and how quickly you can show someone else how to use it too is just, you can't beat it. It's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so that was the sort of the technical things. I'm trying to think of any other pieces of technology we're using for the. I mean, you know, we make some slides. I think I think we have some Canva lovers. I haven't used Canva for slides yet, but that's not maybe the
Yeah,
most exciting thing. But
yeah, I definitely use Canva for mine. You can definitely see a running theme because I like the one template that I set up for a workshop maybe one or two ago, and so I continue using those. And it makes it really easy. Like I just download the slides as a PDF, and then when it's in StreamYard, you can like click through each image, so you don't have to like worry about sharing like a Google slide or anything like that, which is really helpful.
yeah, it's a good point. StreamYard lets you upload PDFs and I think PowerPoint files directly into the interface, which is super
Hmm.
cool because you don't actually have to use screen sharing then. Which is, you know, screen sharing works fine, but it's kind of nice, especially if you're on like a single monitor or something like that. It's just really handy. Yeah, I made one slide deck. I think this is actually the first time I made a slide deck for one of these workshops. I am sort of I'm slide adverse. I don't have a problem with slides, but it
Yeah.
takes me forever to make them. I don't know why. Anyway,
Hmm.
so and I did the same thing. I uploaded mine as PDFs. In my case, I used this tool called Brilliant. It's okay. I wouldn't recommend it. um, use Canva, use Google Slides. I also really like slides.com, which makes
Okay.
slides that you can actually self-host as websites. So that's really cool. Is you can export them
Oh
as an
yeah.
HTML file when you're done, and just throw them in your cpanel, and now you've got like
Oh, that's
a
cool.
nice web native slide, which is cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so that, you know, that's kind of the technical, I think, overview. The last thing I think we should, you know, give a little time to is just sort of themes we saw, and upcoming things for Domain One Zone and WordPress multi-site. And I do have a couple ideas here. I sprung this idea on Meredith, so Meredith, don't feel bad if you.
No, it's okay.
um, but uh, but one thing I noticed a lot of people talking about in the WordPress multi-site yesterday was, there was actually kind of a lot of discussion about like policy and purpose. We did have a whole session related to that, so that does make sense. But it does feel like it resonated with folks, or at least a subset of folks, in terms of like, you know, what are we. And what I mean by that is it was a through line in all of the discussion in some way, right? Like right from the beginning of the day, we had folks talking about like, oh yeah, it would be good if we had policy, or I guess this session was at the end of the day, but it was brought up all day on like how long sites should stick around and what is an active and an inactive site. And we kind of, in I think many different sessions, actually made the argument of like, look, you just kind of have to define it, right? And you have to put it somewhere, and then you have to point to it. And I know that's not like mind blowing or anything, but um, here's what other schools are doing. Use, inform yourself based on what they did, um, and um, it's going to make your life easier rather than saying like, well, we'll figure out what an inactive site is 10 years into the multi-site, um,
Yeah. And I think I mean, I think that's been a running theme I've seen with a lot of people outside of the workshops too, like the work you were doing with UMW blogs and like
sure.
archiving all of that work. And um, VCU Rampages is doing that sort of thing right now too, like trying to figure out like what makes the most sense on existing multi-sites to try to keep those there. And it's definitely, I find difficult to try to define itself because it's not as black and white as like technical things would be, like how to
Yeah.
troubleshoot something or how you would approach a specific scenario. So um, I think being mindful of like and continuing to talk through that whole process of the policies you want to set for the multi-site is really helpful too. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, like I think something you said about I lost a train, but there was one piece that you said in the policy session that I thought was really cool. But I will put that in the chat um, too.
Yeah, so Tom in Discord just said starting with rules people understand and can see is much easier than applying stuff retroactively. Yep. It just is. And also I think, it's also never too late, right? Most of the people, I don't think anyone we had in the workshop yesterday was like, well, I don't know for sure. There's actually a couple people who sounded like they were like going to maybe start a new multi-site, but most of the people were, you know, veterans of this stuff,
Mhm.
or at least in some way, or were sort of kind of new to the project, but they were coming to a multi-site that's been around for at least a few years.
Right.
It's not, start now. Like it doesn't. It's not a big deal. I think, in my opinion, obviously you need to get lots of, you want to, get feedback on things, but um, having that stuff spelled out, in my experience, is way more comforting to folks than not, right? Like it's easy to say like, well, we can't put a date on things or a policy on things because then people will be afraid their stuff's going to go away. It's like, well, if you say nothing, they're afraid their stuff's going to go away. If you put a policy on it, people are going to go, well, I know what to expect now. And that's at least my experience with, honestly, that applies pretty broadly to almost any IT project at a school.
Yeah.
And it was kind of cool that like we had some folks who were talking about like, oh yeah, I've got sites on our multi-site from 2007 and it's really rough because we don't know what to do about it. And I was like, well, yeah, like that is hard to deal with, but also so cool of a problem to have, in my opinion. And obviously, I'm, have the the bias of I think it's long lived web projects are great. I think that's one of the
Mhm.
best things about the web is that things can last a long time, but they don't always, obviously. Um, and I mentioned I was in there. I was like, think of how many services like a given school has started and retired in that time. Like from 2007, I was used to work at St. Norbert College. I can tell you I was a student from 2010 to 2014, and I, in the time from 2007 to today, they have gone through 3 email providers. Like that's
Yeah.
wild.
The
But
changeover.
WordPress outlived all of them. Obviously, this is a different school we were talking about, not St. Norbert.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if it was similar for them.
Mhm.
So I think that's awesome, honestly. And so setting policy around, well, when do sites need to go away? And usually my plainest recommendation is like, how about when no admins on file have email addresses? Like that's, kind of what I like to go with as a starting point. But you can go more from there. That was something that was throughout the whole thing.
Mm.
On the domain of one's own day, honestly, there was a lot of different things that we could pull at. The domain of one's own session tends to be a lot more about technical, like how to do things, and the WordPress multi-site tends, at least what we focus on, tends to be how to think about things and get started with things, because the reality of administering WordPress multi-site, at least from our perspective, the first folks we work with, is most people don't need much other than like, some guidance on how to set policies, and then we can kind of help them with all the technical stuff. And most things they'll need to learn, they can learn pretty quickly. And
Mhm.
anything beyond that, that's what they're paying us for, right?
Right.
Whereas domain of one's own there's a lot more technical possibilities, right? cPanel can do all of these different things, all kinds of applications, backups, all these things. But it was really cool to see so much thought around. It's the thing that attracted me to domain of one's own before I even worked at Reclaim, is so many admins thinking critically about, what domain of one's own means at their institution in terms of digital literacy and critical practice. And like, I love that stuff. Domain of one's own always, I think, draws that type of, often draws that type of admin as someone who's like got a technical foundation but wants to help explain these things to their users, or give students the opportunity to explore these tools. And I find it really energizing every time we do a workshop when I see people talking about that stuff. So it's super cool. Yeah.
I thought overall, like, the security mindset, we did a security stream with Noah to talk through some of like the things that are on his brain with security. And I think Reclaim as a whole for the last couple of years, like I want to say since like middle of last year, we've been in a security mindset for sure, to like try to make sure our servers are up to date, and just taking on some more projects and getting specifically certified in RAM compliance and things like that. So I think that's been a running topic for the team. So I always enjoy watching those sort of streams too.
Yeah, we got Noah on for a session, kind of a security ask/tell all, and it was really great. I love when we can get as much of the team at Reclaim involved. And God, my cat is just wants to be on the desk today, and we don't always have the opportunity to get infrastructure involved. And frankly, usually when we do, they're kind of like, "Oh, I don't know." I was like, "No, it's cool. You're gonna be on this one."
Yeah.
And for Nova's game, but yeah. So I always love that. And that I think we definitely want to continue sessions like that going forward. And it was even cool because we had recently, about a month ago, done a stream. Noah and I did one on like open source security related tools that we're using.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of nice to be able to point back to that and say like, hey, we talked through this thing in more detail if you want to learn about Wazoo and and a sim that you could self-host. And it's like, we're not going to go through all of that in this session. That's not really something you have to worry about because we are doing that for you. But here's what we're using, and if you're curious, here's more info. And I like that. I thought that was a really great session. Definitely want to do that more. Yeah, and I'm really excited to we have some ideas internally about things that places we want to take domain of one's own and WordPress multi-site at Reclaim, and some stuff that I can just talk about like vaguely. Like I think it would be great to keep pushing on some of the work that or building on. Amanda did a lot of work for last year's WordPress multi-site to build out specific multi-site focused knowledge base articles. And that's really great. And I think we want to keep building on that because we are pretty good and comfortable with WordPress hosting, but we don't have a lot of like out there public recommendations for processes. We're starting to do that, right? These workshops are that, and that the knowledge base is, but I think we want to keep building on that and trying to help new multi-site folks start with like an experience that we can say like, here's what we'd recommend, and you can deviate from any of this, but here's the Reclaim multi-site experience, because we don't really have a specific set of that right now. We have certain things, right? We know how we do single sign-on. We can tell folks how that works. We do have a couple plugins, but I think we want to um, keep building things there, and that is stuff that we do kind of have for Domain of One's Own that it would be cool to see um, for Multisite. And kind of similarly for Domain of One's Own, the work that Tom did with the dashboard plugin, and I've got
Yeah.
pushed out to quite a few schools now, and we are still working on a global rollout, so every single school has it. I will say we probably have more than half at this point that I've just manually installed it, but the global rollout of that plugin is going to be, I think, really interesting because it's going to allow us to do more work like that a lot faster in the future. Basically, we have some foundation laying to do to be able to push out custom code to these particular WordPress not multi-sites, but WordPress sites that are that power Domain of One's Own in a good and secure and safe way. And we're working through it right now. But once we do that, I'm really hoping to do more stuff like that dashboard plugin, more reports, more things like that. We already do, in the last couple of years, do a lot more like managed updates of those WordPress sites for admins. So they don't have to think about it, but this would be building on that work even more. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just looking at the chat a little bit.
Yeah, so Ed mentioned, it's a differentiator between you and that other large organization that hosts multi-sites for campuses. Yeah, I want to steal some of their ideas, to be perfectly honest. Like, I think it's cool that they have a page that say, like, these are the plugins that we have. Now, the downside is those are the only plugins. Or not, I don't think that's strictly true, but it's mostly what you can get access to over there. And, they do a lot of development and stuff that we are, they're at a scale that we're not at in terms of like literal like plugin developers and stuff like that. But I do think we can curate things for folks, and we're doing some of that, and I want to keep pushing on that for sure.
Absolutely.
I look at their list of plugins too. It's typically good, but a lot of them are proprietary to them. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, that is kind of, what I'm thinking about coming off the workshop. And really excited, I guess we're going to start thinking about the next one. It's kind of how it goes. But we'll have, spring and summer to kind of build things towards it. I always like to have a lot of our, especially Domain of One's Own related projects, but now WordPress Multisite too, I like to have as deadlines around the workshop because it's sort of a natural place to be like, oh, this is a new thing that we can talk about and stuff like that. So there's a lot of changes happening at Reclaim in terms of, capabilities we have, and, server migrations are huge right now for us getting off of CentOS. And a lot of those things will be very different by the time the next workshop is around. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cool. Awesome. Yeah, I really enjoyed the last couple of days with the workshops. It's always really fun to see the new faces of the admins that have come on since the last workshop too. So I always like to see that and see how they're starting to think through their project. So that was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think with that, we're going to sign off, unless you have anything else, Meredith.
No, that was it. That was a good recap.
Great. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for everyone who watched, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see y'all.